Good morning. Thank you for joining us today as we welcome back Brian Nessel. Brian is a holistic health professional, an ACE personal trainer, nutritionist. He's got a degree in holistic nutrition and HHP from the University of San Francisco and the Global College of Natural Medicine. 5 years ago, he lost over 100 pounds using the methods and lifestyle that he teaches today. He speaks around the Midwest on nutrition and healthy living. He's married and has 4 boys. Please join me as we welcome Brian speaking on today's topic of commonly accepted diet myths.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Oh, I'm going to walk around with the microphone. How many people in here have tried a diet before? Raise your hand. How many people have tried 2? 3? So on and so forth. As was explained to you, I used to be well over 300 pounds. I don't know exactly how much because I gave up on weighing myself. And I tried just about everything. I remember the first time that I lost weight, I decided that I was going to go on the Atkins diet. And I really liked it because I loved cheese, so you could have as much cheese as you wanted to on the Atkins diet. And I didn't really get the concept because you're not supposed to have full blocks of cheese with chicken, but you could have a lot of cheese with your chicken. And so I did lose a good 15, 20 pounds on the Atkins diet. I don't think I went to the bathroom for a good 2.5 months during that time, but the weight loss was okay. But then the second that I started eating normal things, everything kind of came back to me. The reason why I ended up going to school and learning what I've learned, which by the way, it always cracks me up when people introduce me and they talk about my degree and all this and that. I would say maybe 15% of what I use during a day actually came from college, and the rest of it has come from the research from the patients that I have seen, over the last 2 years. Because initially when I started, there were a lot of things that I believed in that now today I am diametrically opposed to, because I was taught many things that are the commonly accepted diet myths that I'm going to be talking about today, that I have since learned through doing research. Once you learn the science of the human body, then dieting kind of becomes a lot simpler. The problem is with us as human beings is we were designed to survive just about anything. And in that survival mode, one of the best things we can possibly do is we can store fat, and we can store it really efficiently, and we have a very hard time getting rid of it. And that's because 10,000 years ago, we might only eat 4 months out of the year and then have a couple nuts and berries and insects and bark and something for the other 8 months because you just couldn't find something to kill or pluck or eat. Being designed that way makes it so that fat storage is an essential part of our existence. Then what happened is we became an industrialized society, and everything became faster and easier and more plentiful, and now we are where we are. So I want to talk today about diet myths. If at any point you have any questions, don't worry about stopping me. Raise your hand. I'll call on you because, I never have a linear path to anything that I do in life, so I'm more than happy to veer left or right to answer anything. The first type of diet that I like to talk about are food-specific diets, and that includes something like the Atkins diet. That can be as simple as things like the grapefruit diet, which originally the grapefruit diet was you had a grapefruit for breakfast, you had a grapefruit for lunch, and then you had something little for dinner, and then you were going to lose weight. The Atkins diet is you totally avoid carbohydrates like there's something terribly, terribly awful about them. You eat as much protein as you can, and you're going to lose weight. There's even a Twinkie diet that actually can be successful for you. Yeah? Right, but the way that the Atkins people look at carbohydrates is kind of messed up. They look at carbs as something that you have to limit, and you have to have specific kinds of carbs, which I agree to that in theory. I mean, I wouldn't want your only carbohydrate intake to be Wonder Bread, but they're opposed to things that have tons of great things in them. They don't like bananas much. I don't think a banana ever did anything terrible to anybody. Well, it might have. Yes, sorry. But you know, it's something that they overly generalize. Actually, surprisingly enough, I know a bald guy down the road that's kind of done something like that. So, and we'll get to that in a second. Well, yeah, I mean, when it comes to the Atkins diet, it is a short-term weight loss program. It is not a lifestyle to live. If you stay on the Atkins diet, even their modifications as you keep on going, you are going to be nutritionally deficient, you'll end up very sick, and you'll probably end up like Dr. Atkins. Because he did great until he died from stuff that they can directly tie back to his diet. You know, you have to have a balanced diet. And actually, I'll get to that in a second about why all of these other diets aren't working. But like with the Atkins diet, like with the grapefruit diet, that is a short-term solution to a symptom, not the problem. The symptom is you're eating the wrong way, or you have, and all of a sudden you've become overweight. So if you want to lose 15 pounds and you want to do it in 2 weeks, then yeah, the Atkins diet, you'll probably do that. The grapefruit diet, you could probably do that. You could eat Twinkies, and I'm not joking. If you had a Twinkie in the morning, a Twinkie at lunch, and then a chicken breast at night, you'll lose 15 pounds. You'll be incredibly unhealthy, but you'll lose 15 pounds. I wouldn't suggest anybody do that. If you're like going, oh, spring break, I'm going to do the Twinkie thing. No, don't. I'll give you other options later. The reason why they work is all about caloric intake. The Atkins diet preaches eat this, this, and this, but make sure your caloric intake is between 1,200 and 1,500. Stay away from carbohydrates because carbohydrates turn into sugar, and then the sugar is going to make you store fat. In theory, again, it's kind of right. But if you eliminate carbohydrates, then you have to get your energy from turning protein into a synthesized form of energy. You have to somehow try to get sugar out of protein. It doesn't really work. Carbohydrates are essential for your vitamins, your nutrients. And then what they say with Atkins people is, you know, do our diet, but then take this boatload of supplements, and that will help you get your nutrients. Which we'll get to diet pills and supplement pills and how I think they're okay, but you don't get what you actually think you're getting. The reason why the Atkins diet ends up failing is that sooner or later, your body has control over you. Your body wants to survive. And there is no better sign of this than a pregnant woman. Because when you are a pregnant woman, I haven't been one myself, but I've heard about it. You get cravings. Any woman here have cravings while they were pregnant? Anybody? Okay, they can be crazy. They can be really weird too. There are some pregnant women that will crave tinfoil, and they'll be like, why do I want to chew on tinfoil? It's not the tinfoil, it is the elements that are inside of the tinfoil. There are pregnant women that have been known to go outside and grab a handful of dirt and eat the dirt, and they don't know why. And it's because they are nutritionally deficient in certain minerals, and their body instinctively knows that they can find them in soil. It's not going to work out very well, but they can find them there. On the Atkins diet, if you stick to it, in about 2 to 3 months, you're going to start having cravings, and you'll be able to fight them away. And then they're going to come back, and it's going to be harder to fight them away. And by the 3rd or 4th month, you're going to be like, I don't care, I'm getting a donut, I'm getting a Krispy Kreme, I'm getting something because I need the sugar. Well, you don't need the sugar. What you need is carbohydrates. You need fruits and vegetables that if you were allowed to have that in your diet in the amounts that are natural to us, you would never crave them. And you wouldn't be nutritionally deficient and end up being sick. With like the grapefruit diet, that's kind of the opposite. You'll have way too much sugar and citrus and acids, and you'll end up having stomach issues. With the Twinkie diet, I don't know what happens. I've never really studied it that much, but I'd imagine you'd probably crave something like Pepto or something. I don't know. So that is why a food-specific diet, it's effective, but it's terrible for you. It can't last long term, and the only one that is like accepted for a long term is kind of the Atkins thing. Nobody is going to try to live their whole life on the grapefruit diet. That's kind of a quick fix. But there are other quick fixes you can do that you can actually last the rest of your life, and we'll talk about that in a second. Then the next one, and this is one that I'm always careful talking about because I have friends that are in this business. Yes? The ostrich uvula diet, it's eating ostrich uvulas, and I'm not even sure they exist, but I'm just saying you could eat any one particular thing. Well, they're actually deep frying ostrich uvulas in Australia. And I saw that as I was writing this, so I thought, what the heck, let's throw it in there. So, sometimes I can be a smart aleck, and apparently right there, at that time I decided to be. When it comes to meal replacement diets, basically what I'm talking about is the meal replacement shakes. And there are lots of different companies out there that sell them, and there are lots of people that are my friends that are involved in these companies. And so I'm strictly going to talk factually about it. Meal replacement shakes can be an effective tool, short term, to lose weight. When it comes to the health-related aspect of it, it is not the healthiest way to lose weight. And I'm going to explain why. Number one, in order for food to be synthesized in our body and to digest into our body, it has to be broken down through one of like 5 different means. But each one of those means involves the food putrefying, for lack of a better term. You have to have your food break down and become basic elements. When you are doing a meal replacement shake kind of thing, those shakes are designed to stay good for months and months and months at a time. You can have a drink box of your protein shake, and you can put it in your fridge, and you can have it there for 6 months, and it won't go bad. You can have a gallon tub of the protein mix, and it can sit on top of your fridge for 6 months and it won't go bad. When you make it into a shake, it still has all the preservatives in it. And because it's in liquid form, it's actually flying pretty fast through your body. Your body doesn't have to sit and digest it and break it down. It's already in a liquid form. So one of the things that is marketed is that because it's in a liquid form, it's easier for your body to digest and synthesize and absorb. It's actually not true. Because of the preservatives in it, you only get about 35% of what they say on the label. That's all you're really going to get from the nutrients that are in that shake. Now, yes, 35% of it, if you're having it 3 times a day, you're going to have plenty. And that's great. But in the long term, if you are on a meal replacement kind of diet, what you're doing is you're having a shake in the morning and then a shake at lunch, and then you have something for dinner. And then you take some supplements in with all of that. Short term, again, wonderful. It's going to work. You can lose weight doing a meal replacement diet. But the second you go back to the normal food, chances are you're going to rebound. And for a lot of people, the rebound is actually higher than when they started in the first place. So you lose your 15 pounds, and then you get off the shakes, and then you gain 16, 17 pounds. One of my friends who actually was getting on the meal replacement diet, she had brought me her paper from the person that sold it to her. And it was kind of her instructions. And the instruction said, have your shake in the morning and then do X amount of cardio. And have your pill and your fat burner pill and then have your shake at lunch and do a little bit more cardio. And then at night have this and this to eat, but stop at that amount and then be done with eating the whole day. And then it said in big letters, you can do this. Anyone can do this for 2 weeks. And if you go for 2 weeks, you're going to see a weight loss. So basically saying, you know, come on, people can starve themselves for 2 weeks. Anybody can. I mean, it's commonly accepted in Hollywood. Go ahead, starve yourself. When you do that, you're robbing yourself of the nutrients that your body requires every single day. And not only that, your brain starts to adapt, and your brain will go into what's called famine response mode. If you do the same thing every single morning, and this even goes back to like the grapefruit diet and the food-specific diets. If you do the same thing every day, like your breakfast is a shake and then your lunch is a shake, every single day, your body starts knowing what's coming. And when it knows what's coming and it's not getting enough nutrients, it slows down the metabolism. The reason why it does that is it knows that when you're eating the same thing from our history, that means you're running out of food. If you ate berries every day 10,000 years ago, it meant that the big animal that you killed is gone now, and so now everything better slow down. So when you're eating the same thing, breakfast and lunch, you're telling your body, look, we've kind of run out of food, so you might want to take it easy. And that's what happens. Now, for the first week, you'll get a really good response. And the second week, you get a pretty good response. But the third week is when it really starts slowing down because your body is starting to worry. And it's nothing that we can do. There's no positive attitude that can change your metabolism and say, no, come on. We got plenty of food around us. We're just choosing to have this. You know, the people that do, they become psychologically addictive. These kinds of things are. Because in the first 2 weeks, you saw these great things. And you're like, well, I must not be sticking to it the right way if it's not coming off as fast. For some people, it'll work for 3 months, 4 months. But the second they go back to real food, and they will. Everybody will, because your body will crave it to a point that you can't stop yourself anymore. And normally when you do go back to regular food, the first thing you choose is the foods that you probably shouldn't because you've kept them away for so long that you're like, you know, forget it, I'm having McDonald's, Burger King, whatever. So doing the meal replacements, again, if you want a quick fix for 2 weeks, go ahead. You're going to have success on it, especially if you can stick to their program and what they say to do. But for long term, it's not a healthy way. And you're going to end up seeing more long-term problems with it if you stick to it for a very long time because you're just not able to absorb the kind of nutrients that you can from real whole foods. Okay? Then we go to my favorite one, the calorie counting diets. Anyone here, and it's none of my business, so if you don't want to raise your hand, fine, but anyone here ever do Weight Watchers? Anyone ever do Weight Watchers more than once? Okay. Don't feel bad because 85% of Weight Watchers people do it more than once. That right there should tell you something. Calorie counting diets. Number one, they're based on numbers that now the scientific community is realizing are totally messed up. Weight Watchers, if you're a woman, they're going to try to put you anywhere between 1,200 and 1,500 calories. And they're going to tell you that's where you stay. And here's how you do it. We've assigned points to every food known to man. And instead of counting calories, we'll just have you count points. And once you reach all your points, you're done. which the thinking behind that, one of my friends who was on Weight Watchers told me that if she would have had 6 brownies in a day, she would have used up all her points and somehow magically lost weight. 1,200 calories to 1,500 calories, I can tell you right now, that's about maybe 2/3 of what you should have if you're a woman. If you were a completely sedentary person that literally didn't have any upward mobility, then I could see 1,500 calories. I mean, if you were wheelchair bound and you couldn't push the wheelchair on your own, then 1,500 calories would probably be something that would be wise because you don't have the ability to have any cardiovascular exercise. For anyone who can walk and you're a woman, you better do more than 1,500 calories in a day. Because what happens long term is that you put your body through a famine response because your body can't survive on 1,500 calories. So it will slow your metabolism down, and then that will become your normal metabolism. So people who are on these 1,200 calorie diets, and they were very successful, and then 2 years later they're still doing 1,200 calories, but now they're gaining weight, it's because your metabolism has basically given up and said, we're starving ourselves now, so we better slow down or else we're going to be in big trouble. I'll get to in a second how many calories you should have, and for some people it shocks them. But the other problem that I have when it comes to the Weight Watchers of the world, and by the way, is anyone like involved in Weight Watchers, like they're a stockholder or anything? Because I really don't want to tick you off. I'll say that one company. The fact that they assign points to foods, and they do tell you what you should have and what you shouldn't have, but their focus is on the points. I can't imagine telling someone, if you eat really rotten during the day, and you use up all your points, and you didn't have any fruits, and you didn't have any vegetables, just stop eating and start over tomorrow. It's like saying, I know you just put 10 gallons of maple syrup in your car, but it's a really crappy maple syrup and you've filled up all of your gallons for the day, so just leave it and tomorrow we'll put in real gas. You can't have somebody function on food that is just full of sugar and full of processed ingredients. It just won't work. So when you're on these calorie counting and number counting kinds of diets, the most important part is, number one, teaching somebody how to eat. Because if you're on it and all you're used to is counting points, and you're not learning the basic premises behind nutrition and what food is supposed to do for you, then your long-term success is going to not be very positive. Okay? Any questions on that one? Well, type 2 means that his body is having a tough time. It's insulin resistance. So his body is just not producing enough for the amount of sugar that he takes in, but his pancreas still works. Type 1, his pancreas is shot. He has to have insulin. Okay. Well, type 2 is a tricky one, and it's one that is actually really simple to completely alleviate. But what doctors end up worrying about is that type 2 diabetes can lead to kidney issues, can lead to liver issues, and they focus too much on that in my opinion. But that's a whole another discussion that I would be more than happy to have with you. Next is the miracle pills. Anybody here ever take ephedrine? How did it work for you? Probably worked great. Did your heart race? Did you get hot? You weren't taking enough then. You're lucky to be alive because you weren't taking enough. Ephedrine, it was a miracle pill. There were people that could take ephedrine. They could eat whatever the heck they wanted. And what ephedrine ended up doing was constantly had your heart rate higher. It raised your core temperature higher. So your metabolism went higher. And what they didn't think about as long term is just we are very similar to a car engine. If you put your car in neutral and you floor it, sooner or later your car is going to die. And that's what ended up happening to lots and lots of people who were on ephedrine. There's another one out there called clenbuterol that is very similar to ephedrine. And it's actually illegal. You can get it in Canada. I don't know why Canada doesn't think it's illegal, but there are people that took it absolutely the way that they were supposed to, as directed by their doctor. It had nothing to do with abuse whatsoever. It had to do with the fact that the pill on its own was a wonderful premise, just not very well thought out, because it raises your core temperature, which the second that happens, that means that all of your organs inside are getting hot. And when your organs get hot, they start not functioning the right way and they start breaking down. And then with your heart rate raised constantly, I mean, at a resting rate, if you were on ephedra, your resting heart rate would be about 110. And that was, that's just dumb in all sorts of ways. Okay, well then maybe you were taking something else. Because ephedra, I mean, it worked about the same for every single person. There were two different types. One wasn't ephedra, one was ephedrazone, which was the kind of a ephedrazone. I don't know how to spell it. Ephedrazone. That was slightly different. It didn't have the same effects when it came to heart rate. It was supposed to change, it was supposed to curb your hunger and you boost your energy, but it didn't work with your heart rate and your core temperature like ephedra did. Any pill like that, yeah, it was highly successful for people until they died. Then I guess it wasn't as successful. Well, from my meth days, I never used Benzodrine. No, yes, it is. Yeah. I mean, I do know that crystal meth has a lot of the same properties. Yep. And it is. I mean, that's exactly why they have Sudafed. So you have to show your license and take a blood test and pee in a cup, and then you can take care of a cold. Because a lot of, I mean, Sudafed does have it raises your core temp. It's not, please don't use Sudafed as a diet pill, because you'll be really dry by the end. So, right. Yeah. That's what I was just about, I'm glad you asked, because I'm just about to go there. Fat burners in general. They are 98% magic fairy dust and 2% actual science behind them. Are they as effective as they are marketed to be? No, not even close. It is impossible to target fat in the way that the pill makers are suggesting you can target fat. The only way you can have a fat burner is, again, to be raising your heart rate, which even taking caffeine, that raises your heart rate and it raises your core temp. When you look at the chemical properties of fat burners, in theory, yes, they do, quote unquote, make it so you burn fat faster. The amount to which you burn your fat faster is far lower than what they're claiming to be. There's one commercial out there for some fat burner. I don't know what one it is, but they say in a very, deep, husky voice, if you lose more than 10 pounds in 10 days, make sure you contact your... And the reason why they do that is because the chances are you're never going to lose 10 pounds in 10 days, but they want you to think, holy crap, I could lose 10 pounds in 10 days with this thing. I'm going to get some. By the way, on my program, if you lose 10 pounds in 10 days, good job. Don't contact anybody. Just go home and eat more. You'll keep on losing weight. The fat burners, there are fat burners, and then there are pills that are supposed to surround fat and make it so you can't digest fat. In fact, they make potato chips out of it. Olean. Has anybody tried the Olean potato chips? They're really funny because you eat them, and then they kind of come out of the way that they went in you, and you're, ew. And then you never want a potato chip again. So I encourage you to have the Olean chips so you'll never have potato chip ever again. But they have those products that you can put that in your water. You break a little capsule and you put it in your water, and then you drink it, and then all the fat that you eat during the day just kind of slides right out of you in really gross ways. My whole thing is, why are we so angry with fat? Fat doesn't make you fat. That's like, does a blueberry, if you eat a blueberry, do you turn blue? No. Well, your fingers might. I guess that was thank you. That was a very poor example. If you eat Doritos, your hands turn orange. Okay, great. No, fat doesn't make us fat. We need fats in our diet. It's absolutely essential. Every single cell in our body is made up of fat and cholesterol. That's why I wonder why people get on cholesterol medication when their cholesterol's at 220. Don't freak out if it's 220. If it's 420, then freak out. When I was at my biggest, and I say this almost like I'm proud of it. When I was at my biggest, my cholesterol was 415. The doctor looked at me and said, "You got pudding going through your veins." I'm like, "Yeah, it's chocolate. Little Debbie." And it was because I was eating a bunch of stuff that I knew was highly processed. It was full of sugar. It was a bunch of crap. And I ate a bunch of crap all the time. And then the second that I started what I now do today, it took me 6 weeks. I went to the doctor 6 weeks after I started. And I hadn't done anything different. I wasn't on any medications, anything like that. My cholesterol went from 415 to 226. My doctor was like, "Well, we still need to put you on some stuff." Why? Your cholesterol can be that high. If you have, and this is kind of going off on a tangent, but forgive me because I want you to know this. If you don't have sugar in your diet, if you limit your sugar to under 20 grams a day, you never have to worry about your cholesterol. You don't. Because there's HDL, there's LDL, there's your triglycerides, but there's a fourth. There's a fourth cholesterol that is the only one you need to be concerned about, and that's VLDL. You have your high-density lipoproteins, you have your low-density lipoproteins. Both of those are like big old beach balls that just flop through your veins. And they're built and designed to just slide through your veins. Then there's the VLDL. That's very low-density lipoproteins. Those are like little teeny shards of glass. The only way you get higher VLDL is by having sugar in your diet. It happens through the process called de novo lipogenesis, which all that means is new fat making. But it happens in your liver, and when you go through de novo lipogenesis, when you eat a bunch of sugar, one of the byproducts is VLDL. When VLDL gets in your veins, it's little teeny shards of glass, and it ends up sticking into your endothelial cells, which is the inside of your arteries and your capillaries and all of that stuff. When it's sticking in there, and it's a shard of glass, then when the beach balls come, they stick to the piece of glass. And then another one sticks, and another one sticks. And that's where you get your problems. But if you have a sugar intake under 20 grams of sugar a day, you will never have a high count of VLDL, ever. I told my doctor when he said, "We need to get you on cholesterol medication." I said, "What's my VLDL?" He said, "I don't know, it's in your triglycerides." I said, "Well, I would like to know my VLDL." It was 1. And that might not mean anything to you, because if it was on a scale of 0 to 1 and 1 is crap, then I would be in trouble. But 1 is about the same as what you would get if you were a 2-year-old child. You start worrying about your VLDL when it gets above 7. That's when you have it present in your blood. So that was a little tangent I went off on. Sorry, thank you. Curtsy. Okay. Medical options. I currently have 6 patients that come to see me who have had gastric bypass surgery. 2 of which have had it twice. When you talk about gastric bypass or lap band surgery, that literally, and it's important to know, if you know anyone that's about to do it, Ask them one question. If they know that the second they have it done, their life expectancy is considered 10 years less. It's common. It happens for several reasons. Number one, when you take your stomach and make it the size of a golf ball, you're kind of putting yourself at risk automatically. I mean, if you have a couple extra too many bites too often, you can literally rupture your stomach. Your stomach's supposed to be the size of a stomach, not a golf ball. The other thing that happens is by removing the part of the stomach that they remove, they're limiting the amount of digestion that can happen and the amount of nutrient absorption that can happen. So with almost every single person that has gastric bypass surgery, and you can ask them too, they can't handle sugar. Now, sugar is not a great thing to have in your life, but it's kind of important. Within reason, if you have sugar within reason and it comes from the right places, you function normally and you have higher energy. But when you remove the part of the stomach that is absolutely essential for breaking down and digesting sugars, then you have a problem. And you'll be fine for 10 years, and then in 15 years, you'll start feeling a little different. And in 20 years, you'll be feeling really different, and you're lucky if you're here in 30 years. Those kinds of surgeries, just terrible. Who here has heard of the HCG shots? You do? Okay, you're going to go back and talk to her. Number one, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, HCG shots, they give you a shot. And they say the shot is the same kind of hormone that you get when you're pregnant. And what it does is it makes it so your body can survive on far less calories. So you get the shots and then they say, go and you have 500 calories a day. And you do that for X amount of time. I'm not even sure the amount of time. I think 3 or 4 weeks or something like that. And you lose massive amounts of weight. But you're not hungry and your body's fine with it because of the fact that you have fooled your body into thinking you're pregnant. By the way, men, please don't take the HCG shot. You don't have a chance to become pregnant, ever. And your body knows that, so even though you now have this hormone in you saying, oh, I'm pregnant, no, it's terrible for you, and your prostate will shrink like a pea. They don't tell you that right away. And then you're like, man, it took me 5 hours to go to the bathroom last night. And they're like, oh, whoops, should have told you that. No. And women, here's what ends up happening when you're done with the HCG. When you're pregnant, what's the final outcome? Anybody know? You have a baby. And then your body deals with that and helps you to burn off the calories and all that by having you breastfeed and by having, for lack of a better term, the afterbirth and all of that. And when you go through the HCG and you don't end up with a baby that you're breastfeeding, or lactating at least, because some people choose not to breastfeed, your body goes, hey, hold on. Now what are we supposed to do? Something's terribly, terribly wrong, and we don't have a baby. We better just shut everything down for a while because something's messed up. And then you can't survive on 500 calories, but if you have 800 calories, you're going to start gaining weight. You're going to start gaining it fast. And if you have 1,200 calories, watch out. In fact, if you're having 1,200 calories and people are on the sides of you or close to your butt, tell them to watch out because it's bound to just pop right up and nail them. It happens, the rebound effect is so fast. And I have 2 patients that have been on the HCG. And the one lost like 38 pounds in 2 weeks. And she was thrilled. And then she came to see me because she was 56 pounds heavier than before she came to get the HCG. Your body can't survive on 500 calories, number one. Number two, we have absolutely no business injecting ourselves with stuff to fool our bodies into thinking that we are something we're not. I mean, I will admit, if there was a shot that made me look like Brad Pitt, I would take it tomorrow. I just would. And my wife would like me a lot more. But outside of that shot, which doesn't exist yet, I'm working on it, There's no shot you should give your body to fool it into thinking that you don't need calories. Because the second you're done with it, your body isn't going to just immediately go back to being okay with having food. And it just doesn't make sense. And the fact, people ask me, oh, what do you think of Dr. Oz? He had a whole show on HCG. And he's sponsored by Kellogg's. I don't like the man at all. I like Kellogg's, kind of, in theory. But yeah, you can't promote that kind of thing that is so very, very dangerous. They don't even know what the long-term effects are. They just found this hormone and thought, wow, this is neat. This makes it so you don't need as many calories. So that's my preaching. It kills your metabolism. It absolutely kills your metabolism. Have you ever been on Clomid? Yeah, Clomid will speed up your metabolism and then stop your metabolism dead in its tracks. When it comes, I mean, you know, you're dealing with a situation there that you're obviously not taking stuff for weight loss because you're actually looking to gain a good, 9 pounds, 8 ounces, That is something that you weigh the pros and the cons. And honestly, going through fertility treatment, if the end result is having a baby, worth it. Afterwards, then you really got to work hard to get your metabolism functioning the right way again because it's been expecting that child the whole time you've been taking the fertility treatments. So it takes a good 16 months to really get it back into shape so it's working again. And that's the thing when I've dealt with my HCG patients, is that I tell them, look, for the first 4 months, don't expect too much. I can make it so you don't gain any more weight, but don't think you're going to be losing weight because you've affected how your hormones work. You fooled your body into thinking something was going to happen that hasn't. And your body is expecting to be expecting. So it makes it a lot more difficult. A lot more difficult. Any other questions on that? Okay, so what do you do to lose weight? I told you all the stuff that's going to work for a little while and then totally screw you up. Might have ruined a couple of your days if you're involved with Weight Watchers or HCG.com. I don't know if that exists, but it'd be cool. The only thing that truly works is tried and true. It's scientifically based. And it's been done. See, the thing that cracks me up is 400 years ago, I couldn't have a job. If I went 400 years ago, if I had a business card written on parchment that said nutritionist, people would be like, what the hell do we need you for? Because back then, there wasn't weight problems. There wasn't diabetic problems. There wasn't heart disease problems. The only problems you had is if you were super, super rich and super, super lazy, then you might be fat. That was about it. But people knew how to eat back then. Now, we get bombarded with so many different messages that we don't know how to eat. So I'm going to tell you really quickly how to eat and how to lose weight fast. Number one, don't eat processed foods. If it comes in a box, you don't want to eat it. It's that simple. I know it's easy and convenient to have a lean cuisine or whatever. It's not good for you. And just so you know, if you weren't here, one of my other ones, if you're eating lean cuisine, here, I want to ruin lean cuisine for you. Hold on. If you're eating lean cuisine, and let's say you have one a week, by the end of 6 months, you will have the equivalent of 8 ounces of paper in your digestion. Because lean cuisine uses cellulose as one of their fillers. And cellulose is absolutely nothing but wood pulp. Later I can talk about milk and ruin it for everyone too, if you want me to. Yeah, they use cellulose as wood pulp. If you see it in an ingredient in something you're eating, please be very aware that they are treating you like a termite. We can't digest cellulose. We can't. For many people, it can lead to diverticulitis because it gets stuck in your duodenum and it can't leave. Just get stuck there. So look at the foods that you're eating. Read the boxes. In fact, just throw away the boxes and find a way to make the actual thing that you purchased. If you eat whole foods, and by whole foods, people are like, what's a whole food? I'll eat a whole box of something. No. Whole foods is you eat fruits, you eat vegetables, you eat meat that is unprocessed. If you eat that kind of stuff, you're going to be golden. How much do you eat? Well, when it comes to fruits and veggies, you should have the equivalent of about 3 or 4 cups a day. For each, not total. You have 3 or 4 cups of fruits, 3 or 4 cups of veggies, and you'll be good. When it comes to carbohydrates, have things like rice and potatoes and quinoa. Who here has had quinoa? Quinoa. It's a superfood. You should eat it. It's wonderful for you. And then the big one is to avoid things that say whole grain. We've been told the last 20-some years to eat whole grains. Nope. Don't eat whole grain because you're going to get fat if you eat whole grain. Here's what happens really quickly with whole grain because I'm talking about it next time I come here. Whole grain contains 2 different proteins. One of the proteins is a protein that the second that it reaches your stomach, it turns into a sugar, and then it sends a message to your brain saying, hey, we're still hungry. Wheat, gluten, anything that has gluten in it would be considered a whole grain. Believe it or not, flaxseed, that wonderful flaxseed, that can have some, it is a whole grain that needs to be, I'm a fan of it, but not when you put something, oh, flaxseed's good for me, I'm going to put it in everything. Look, this is my flaxseed iced tea. No. Flaxseed, you should have a little teeny, like half a teaspoon or so a day. You don't want to have more than that. But wheat is the main culprit. Whole wheat. Wheat is terrible for you. If anybody here a farmer? Did you have cows? When the cows got sick and they wanted to not be sick anymore, what did they do? They went over and they ate the wheat. Want to know why? Because they were going to throw up or get the runs really bad and whatever was inside of them would get out of them really fast. So wheat is not made for us to eat. It just isn't. And the proteins that are within it are proteins that, number 1, will make you hungry faster. Number 2, will never fully satiate you. You can never eat like, and I tried this back when I was big. I was like, if I eat a whole loaf of bread, I'll be full. Nope. I was close. Took 2 more Little Debbie snack cakes over the loaf of bread, and then I was full. But yeah, you just can't, you're not satiated when it comes to having wheat in your diet. Yeah. No, I mean, flaxseed it has some benefits for you, but if you're fairly regular, then you don't need that much flaxseed. Flaxseed does have some antioxidants in it. It does have iron in it. It has magnesium in it. I'm not saying it's not nearly as bad as wheat, but it's not something you want to put in every single thing you eat. And I know people that put it in their oatmeal, on their chicken, in their milk, they just go nuts. About a teaspoon, half teaspoon, you'd be fine. Turmeric, it's a wonderful urban spice. Yep, and almost everybody does. And if you live in Michigan, you're going to have a lot less of it because we live in the crappiest state with the most clouds ever. Soy milk is awful because of the fact that it is full of estrogen. It's an estrogen-producing food. So what happens with women that have too much soy is that they go ahead and they end up having early menopause. They'll have male gender problems. They'll have facial hair and a deepening of their voice and swelling of things that they don't want to have swell. There you go. For men, the commonly referred to term of gynomastia happens with men. If you don't know what that is, that's man boobs. If you have too much soy, you will get that. You will have your prostate swell and enlarge because your estrogen levels build up and then your testosterone tries to catch up and everything kind of gets screwed up. And it can cause erectile dysfunction. It can cause higher risk of having cancer. I could give you 45 minutes of why soy sucks. Now, in theory, soy shouldn't. But soy and corn are the two most genetically modified foods that there are. And they are modified to be bigger beans. And by being a bigger bean, you have more estrogen in it. If you go to a Chinese restaurant and you get some edamame, feel free. It's soy. It's soy in the shell. Kind of, yeah. If you get it at a Chinese restaurant, they don't have it genetically modified, I'll tell you that much. It's virtually impossible. 98% of all soy is genetically modified in our country. And if you have it, if it's like soy lecithin or if it's a soy protein product that you are taking in a shake, I guarantee you it's genetically modified. And it's terrible. Coconut milk, almond milk, almond, coconut, sometimes even goat's milk. I just said it was a good replacement for regular milk, so I apparently don't think it's too bad. Well, sometimes, but if you are intolerant to goat's milk, then it'd be a pretty dumb thing to know. Because you have a sensitivity to the goat protein. Yeah. I don't know the name of it, but it's in the goat's milk. There are people that literally have the same problem with goat's milk that they do with cow's milk. No. And turmeric isn't magic. No. No, there's nothing, there's not a magical elixir out there. There are things that can help you feel better, given the right circumstances. I mean, for instance, vitamin C. It's common. Everybody knows about vitamin C. If you are about to get a cold, if you feel it coming on, and you catch it early enough, and you have 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C for like 3 or 4 days, you will probably not get that bad of a cold. You will probably have, the runs like you've never had it before, but you won't have a cold. So weigh your 2 options. Be more than happy to look at it. You're going to be, if you're involved in it, you're going to be very, very disappointed, if not outraged at my response to it. Okay, well, I will tell you right now, when it comes to supplements, I believe in supplements if you are nutritionally deficient. I think that the best way to get supplements in your life is to eat them through foods. And I think that any kind of fat burner, any kind of thing like that is trying to take care of a symptom when the problem is you're not eating the right way. Kind of how I feel. Oh, be careful with brown rice breads, though, because in order for it to bind, they have to add things like fruit juices to it. And then you're dealing with additive sugars to it. Brown rice bread, I mean, that loaf of bread probably weighs 14 pounds. You could probably do curls with it. Yeah. That's the whole thing. Going gluten-free is great, but if you're replacing gluten with sugar, then you might as well have gluten because they're both going to do the same thing to you. Well, I guarantee you there is, because that's the only way. If you do regular brown rice bread and you don't add sugar to it, it's brown rice powder. Well, do you enjoy it? Somebody has to buy it, so yeah. Okay, sounds good. But that sounds interesting. I don't know how it would taste, but more power to you if you like it. So, thank you. I appreciate it, and if you guys have any questions, my email and stuff is on there. Feel free to write me. Well, it's perfectly fine. We had enough people in here, I probably could have had this in my Saturn View, and we could have listened to tunes as we were going. All right. Thank you.